It arrived in a plain envelope, but what was inside looked anything but ordinary. A barcode, a parcel number, an official-looking deadline. For 78-year-old Walter Whitaker, the notice promised something every homeowner hopes for: lower property taxes. All he had to do was submit a senior homeowner tax review request and pay a small processing fee. The paperwork appeared legitimate. The deadline felt urgent. The opportunity seemed real. But there was one devastating problem. The program didn't exist. This is Fraud in a Moment, and the truth starts now. The tax review trap, the costly official-looking simple promise of savings. Walter Whitaker had lived in the same home for nearly 50 years. A retired machinist, Walter was the kind of man who paid every bill on time, kept meticulous records, and took pride in being financially responsible. But lately, one thing had been bothering him more and more: property taxes. Every year they seemed to climb a little higher. So when an official-looking envelope arrived in his mailbox labeled Senior Homeowner Tax Review Request, it felt like a stroke of good fortune. The document looked convincing. There was a barcode across the top. His property parcel number was printed right on the form. Official-sounding names like Regional Processing Center and Assessment Filing Center appeared throughout the letter, and in bold print was a warning. A filing deadline was rapidly approaching. The notice suggested that eligible senior homeowners could qualify for a reduction in their property taxes if they submitted their review request on time. To Walter, it seemed legitimate, but that's exactly what the scammers were counting on. Because seniors regularly receive legitimate mail about taxes, Social Security, Medicare, and property assessments. By copying the look, language, and format of government correspondences, they create an immediate sense of authority with folks like Walter. And that authority creates trust. Before Walter ever questioned the notice, the scammers had already planted the idea that this was an official matter requiring prompt attention. Then came the pressure. If the notice was real and Walter ignored it, he could miss out on valuable tax savings. And if it was fake, he'd only be risking a relatively small processing fee. The potential reward seemed much greater than the possible loss. And that calculation by the scammers was no accident. It was the psychological trap at the heart of the scam. The instructions directed Walter to submit a fee to begin the review process. The amount was modest, not enough to trigger alarm, just enough to seem reasonable. So Walter mailed the payment. Weeks later, another notice arrived. Additional documentation was required. Another fee was needed. The explanations were wrapped in bureaucratic language and technical terminology. Everything sounded official, complicated, and completely routine. Walter paid again, and then again. Each new request was presented as one final step toward securing the promised tax savings. The scammers knew precisely what they were doing, and victims, often reluctant to walk away, keep going. And that's exactly what Walter did. By the time his suspicions finally surfaced, he had spent hundreds of dollars on filing charges, administrative fees, and review costs. His financial loss was painful, but the emotional damage was even worse. Walter was embarrassed. He considered himself cautious. In fact, he had spent years warning his own children about unsolicited offers and suspicious schemes. Yet here he was, caught in a fraud that involved no hackers, no stolen passwords, and no high-tech deception. Just trust. Finally, he called his local government office. There was no federal senior homeowner tax review request, no federal law requiring such a filing, no federal form. The entire scheme had been built on an illusion created by official-looking paperwork, an illusion strengthened by government-sounding names, an illusion reinforced by urgent deadlines, promises of savings, and multiple rounds of seemingly reasonable fees. What did we learn from this story? 1. Verify any tax-related notice directly with your local government office. 2. Be skeptical of organizations using official-sounding names that you do not recognize. 3. Never assume a document is legitimate because it contains parcel numbers, barcodes, or legal terminology. 4. Be cautious of any offer promising tax savings in exchange for upfront fees. 5. Slow down whenever a notice includes urgent deadlines or pressure tactics. 6. Ask a trusted family member, advisor, or friend to review unexpected requests. 7. Research unfamiliar programs before paying any fees. 8. Remember that government agencies typically provide clear ways to verify communications through official websites and phone numbers. 9. If something appears too convenient or too urgent, take time to confirm its legitimacy. 10. Report suspected scams to local authorities and consumer protection agencies. Walter Whitaker's story proves that the most dangerous scams don't always look suspicious. They look official, urgent, and believable. Looking back, Walter could see every tactic clearly: authority, urgency, financial anxiety, incremental fees, psychological commitment. Each tactic alone might have raised questions. Together, they created a powerful illusion of legitimacy. And that's what made this scam so dangerous. Because what seems bizarre and unbelievable after the fact often feels completely believable in the moment. But a few minutes of research can prevent a costly mistake. This has been Fraud in a Moment, where we expose the schemes hiding in plain sight and give you the tools to protect what's yours. Until next time, stay alert, stay steady, and remember, when taxes inspire fear and deadlines draw near, check facts before fees and keep your judgment clear.